Out in the country, by the way, stood a church I loved so well. I used to see it every day, the half I cannot tell. When Mother took me by the hand, my heart would leap for joy. She was then a strong young woman, and I a little girl. They went to church with one accord, the rich, poor, high and low, to sing and shout and praise the Lord, from whom all blessings flow.
The Russell School is really a treasure, and it's a historic site here in North Carolina, as are all the Rosenwald schools, which are like an endangered species. And the Rosenwald schools were important in the Jim Crow South many years ago, where there was supposedly equal education for the races, but it was never equal.
During the segregated era, there were lots of ways that people tried to make sure that even with the segregation and the discrimination that was going on, that there were ways that black children could be educated. So the Rosenwald Fund helped to provide education for lots of children.
Julius Rosenwald, who was my grandfather's first cousin, through being on the boards of many organizations, met Booker T. Washington. And the two men discussed the problems of the world and of the country, and both of them saw the need for good education in decent surroundings for black children.
You have to understand America at that point in its development and what it meant to black people at that time to be able to have access to formal education, because it was concluded that the best way out of slavery and upward mobility in this country was through education. So the access to these Rosenwald schools was an exciting opportunity for people who lived in the rural South and didn't have the opportunity to be integrated into the formal, school structures that existed.
So Booker T. Washington and he became friends, and he was on the board of Tuskegee Institute until his death. But beside working with Tuskegee, Booker T. Washington said, why don't we do something for small rural counties so that we can get schools, because people don't have decent school buildings. So he first built 3 or 4 in Mississippi, and then the program expanded, and it ended up building thousands of schools all across the South. And in my research, I found out there was one left in Durham, and that is the Russell Rosenwald School.
I believe Russell, from what I can gather recently, was the name of one of the gentlemen who was a landowner here. And I guess this whole community took on his name, so the school took on the name also. So Rosenwald, of course, for the Rosenwald movement, and Russell for the landowner who may have been involved in the community that built the school.
Well, all the Rosenwald schools had a very strict inspection schedule. They were inspected twice before the school board would get the money. And this inspection included how many coats of paint and what color the paint was, how big the windows were, how the school was oriented. The plans were very specific, and the schools either faced east, west, or north-south. And the Russell Rosenwald School is a north-south facing school because often there was no electricity. And so the color of the walls and the way the windows were positioned was very important so the students had good illumination for their books.
Schools in the South that were not being served for black children were funded through contributions that came from the Rosenwald Fund, as well as through contributions that came from black parents in communities. And there was some contributions that came from local school systems.
And the schools were kind of unique in that Mr. Rosenwald would give some money, the community had to give money. Now the community is already being taxed by their local school board, so they're being doubly taxed, and then the school board had to agree to take on the school, own the property, pay for books, 2 sanitary outhouses, wood stoves, blackboards, and teacher salaries. So it was sort of a community and a public-private enterprise, if you would.
He did not want his name on anything. It was for the good of as he said, for the good of mankind. And he took no credit for it because he felt it was a sense of duty.
I don't think that everybody knows about the school. I think that it's important that they understand for the African American history, that they understand that this is a part of our history, that this is a school that a man actually had the forethought to create a school for African American children. And they wanted to go to school so bad that they walked here, they did the chores, they cleaned up, they did everything they could to get here to have an education. We have free education now, and I don't think that the younger generation takes advantage of the educational opportunities that they actually have. And I think that it's important for the younger generation to be able to come back and be able to understand this piece of history.
Yes, we'll come get to school around 8:30 in the morning. Sometime we'd walk and eventually we got, the buses come by and picked us up. And they would drop us off out there in front of the school, And we would have to wait out there until the teacher get there, because she the one had done locked the door. So it was cold too. In the wintertime, it was really cold. So we waited out there, and so when the teacher come and opened the doors, we had to make a fire. Most of the larger boys would make the fire. And we would all get warm, by the fire. And that's when we'd start classes.
Well, it was just like any other school, that I have been to. But it was a little, difficult for me because, I was real young and had never been to school, They would, assign us so many pages or different stories or different books, for to get our lessons and stuff out that night.
After recess, we'd come back in and do the rest of our homework, whatever, it consists of, and current events. Current events was one of my favorite topics, subject. We used to get a little bulletin come by, we'd do current events from it. And I really did like those, because it would tell you what's going on in the world today.
I'm hoping that future generations will be able to appreciate the hardships, but also the joys that came from attending these schools, and then to apply that to their own lives, and to be able to say, if people had to endure those things to get an education, maybe I can sit up straight in my school, maybe I can pay attention, maybe I can appreciate my own education to a point that will help me to salute the people who had to go through so much more than what I have to endure.
But I think eventually the separate but equal rulings of the Supreme Court, Brown versus the Board of Education, made the white school board want to consolidate the schools more and have more separate but equal schools. So I'm thinking that's probably when most of the Rosenwald schools fell into disrepair, was when new consolidated county African American schools were built. Merritt Moore and Little River are 2 examples of that.
The greatest thing I would like to see done with Russell School is the complete restoration of it. We have gotten it to the National Preservation List, and we want to see it restored to its original state. And we have a lot of restoration items that need to be done in the school.
Once we do the physical restoration of it, then we can concentrate more on activities, more of ensuring that it is a historical component for the African American community.
But I think what their vision is to preserve the school and bring it back up to the standards, to make sure it's painted regularly and that the roof is solid, because the church has done such a great job of preserving it, but now it's the board's responsibility to take care of that. And it could be used in so many different ways as a community center. It could be used for meetings again, for maybe a daycare center, or maybe weddings could take there. It's a beautiful building. It's just an absolutely exquisite little schoolhouse.
Excited about having the 501c3 completed, and that means we'll have grant opportunities. And I just want everyone to know this little piece of history. So we have Roots, we have Django, but we have this particular Russell School right here in our community. It's one of the last ones in Durham County. And I think that it's really, really important that people understand that this piece of history is here. Otherwise, my thoughts are that it is non-existent, that it's just a structure that is here and no one actually knows what it is.
My hopes for the Rosenwald School is that the Russell Rosenwald School, being the last building in the county of Durham, is to make this a monument to and a shrine to those who wanted and sought education, wanted to be educated so that they could become upwardly mobile. I wanted to be an institution where people can come and look at historical documents and look at the history and the migration of blacks in this area.
Oh, I think it's real instrumental in knowing where we come from. You know, how we had to do in our early age, and that was, you know, if you, and it's, especially the next generation, they would need to know where we got our start from, especially our kids and everything. So if we can bring that history out, you know, how we started and where we come from, I think it'll help motivate some folks, help them to see where you come from, then you know where you're going.
They had no organs, notes, nor choir to make the room music ring, would kindle up cholesterol fire to hear those old folks sing.